cruise passenger, called a black CEO, a stowaway, then froze when he learned she was a Marine commander. Hello everyone, before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let's get back to the story. The ocean was calm. The deck wasn't. "You don't belong here, go meet God," Charlotte Wexler screamed the words like a curse, her sequined gown catching the deck lights as she shoved Naomi Reed toward the rail. The wind snapped Naomi's hair sideways, her heels scraping the teak. A gasp tore through the evening air. 5 guests froze mid-cocktail. The violinist stopped playing. Somewhere champagne overflowed in a glass no one remembered holding. Charlotte's voice rose again, sharp enough to slice through the salt air. "Security, there's a stowaway on my husband's ship," her hand still pressed against Naomi's chest, a gesture that wasn't defense but dominance. Naomi didn't flinch. She looked at the woman in front of her the way a storm looks at a candle, quiet, certain, patient. Her tone when it came was barely above a whisper. "You might want to step back before you regret it." Charlotte laughed, a brittle, drunken laugh that echoed off the railings. "Threats now. You people never learn." Behind her, 3 men in tuxedos exchanged uneasy glances but said nothing. A young waiter at the far end, Elliot lifted his phone, recording instinctively. The sky was bruised blue. The sea mirrored it like glass. A perfect night for masks to break. Naomi straightened her posture, brushing off the silver handprint on her jumpsuit. "You said this is your husband's ship," Charlotte tilted her chin. "Yes, and you're about to find out what happens to freeloaders." Naomi took a step closer, calm. "Still, good, because so will you." Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change, and we're glad you're here. Now back to Naomi. Her eyes lifted toward the horizon, steady, unreadable. The wind whispered across the deck, carrying the last of Charlotte's arrogance into the sea. 2 hours earlier, the same deck had glowed gold under a calm Atlantic sunset. Naomi Reed had boarded quietly at Port Lisbon, no entourage, no press. Just a woman in a rose-colored jumpsuit, a canvas tote, and eyes that had seen too many wars to care about showy welcomes. The Horizon Eclipse was more than a ship, it was a floating empire, and she had just bought it. No one on board knew that the woman they'd mistaken for an off-duty crew member was the new owner of Horizon Cruises and a retired Marine commander who had spent 12 years mapping global maritime routes for the Navy. She'd come not for luxury, but for inspection to see what kind of arrogance money had kept afloat. She blended in easily among the passengers. When a hostess offered champagne, Naomi smiled and declined. "I prefer to watch the sea sober." Her calm, unnerved people who measured worth by noise. At dinner, she sat near the back, unnoticed, while a group of investors toasted the good life. One of them, Charlotte Wexler, laughed loud enough for half the deck to hear. "This company will stay pure as long as we keep the wrong types off these ships." Naomi didn't correct her. Not yet. She walked the upper deck alone afterward, wind in her hair, mind drifting back 10 years. Afghanistan night patrol, a radio gone silent, a storm rolling in. She remembered what command felt like, not yelling, just being obeyed. The same stillness was in her now. When the staff greeted other passengers with, "Welcome back," none said it to her. The glances were quick, measuring, dismissive. Still, she smiled. "Good," she whispered to herself. "Let's see who notices respect only after they lose it." By the time the gala began, Charlotte's laughter had spread like perfume. Naomi stayed by the railing, the ocean wide and black beneath her feet. Behind her, music-swelled champagne popped, and the ship hummed with wealth that thought itself untouchable. Then came the shove, the scream, the spark that lit the storm. Naomi straightened now, wiping sea mist from her sleeve. Charlotte still fumed, unaware that the woman she'd just called a stowaway had the power to end her cruise, her comfort, and her illusion, all with a single command. The night was no longer about class, it was about consequence, and Naomi was done staying silent. The security chief arrived first, a tall man in a crisp white uniform, radio still hissing. His name tag read Hail. He looked from Charlotte's trembling hand to Naomi's calm face, instantly choosing a side without asking a single question. "Ma'am," he said to Charlotte, "we'll handle this." Then to Naomi, sharp and cold, "Step away from the railing and state your cabin number." Naomi's eyes didn't move. You want to check the manifest, she said softly. Go ahead. Try it. Hale frowned, tapping his tablet. Charlotte hovered behind him, triumphant. She's not even listed, Hale barked. Who authorized your passage? Naomi exhaled one slow, deliberate breath. The kind she'd learned in war zones before issuing an order that couldn't be undone. You did, she said. Confusion flickered. The officer scrolled again, eyes narrowing. Don't play games, ma'am. No games, Naomi replied. Just oversight. She reached into her tote, pulling out a slim black device. It wasn't a phone. It was encrypted military grade, its screen lighting her face in cold blue. She pressed one button. Far below deck, the ship's PA system cracked softly. Then a voice-calm female authoritative filled the air. Protocol 7 initiated. Awaiting verification code from Commander Reed. The color drained from Hale's face. Commander, he echoed. Charlotte laughed, high-pitched, nervous. She's bluffing. That's some kind of trick, Naomi spoke clearly, not to them, but to the sea. Authorization, Echo 9 Reed Delta. The ship's lights flickered once, then twice. A pause heavy enough to silence the music still drifting from the gala. Verified the voice replied. Commander Naomi Reed, owner and operational head of Horizon Maritime Fleet. Protocol 7 in effect. Security override granted. The sound of that single word, owner, rippled through the deck like thunder under glass. Charlotte stepped back. Wait, you're lying. You can't be. Naomi's gaze pinned her mid-sentence. You accused a Marine commander of trespassing on her own ship. No shouting, no threats, just the weight of fact landing like a verdict. Elliot, the waiter still filming, whispered to someone off camera. Oh my God. She runs this place. Naomi turned to Hale. You wanted my cabin number. Mark it down. Bridge level 1. Command suite. Hale lowered his tablet, slowly, words dying in his throat. The same men who'd stared earlier now stood silent, the Atlantic wind cutting through their shame. Naomi's voice was steady as the tide. Now, officer, let's discuss who truly doesn't belong here. The deck had gone so quiet that even the sea seemed to listen. The music from the gala below had faded into a single, trembling violin note before it vanished entirely. No one moved. Charlotte Wexler's perfume hung in the air, sharp, sweet, and desperate. Her husband Leonard had finally appeared red-faced from brandy and confusion. What's going on here, he demanded, stepping between his wife and Naomi. Hale, the security chief, swallowed hard. Sir, there's been a misunderstanding. Naomi didn't speak. She simply watched them. Her stillness filled the space louder than any accusation. Charlotte clutched her husband's sleeve. That woman pretended to be a guest. She called herself a commander. Leonard turned ready to echo his wife's outrage until he saw the ship's command badge clipped to Naomi's wrist, glowing faintly blue under the moonlight. Commander Reed Hale said finally, voice cracking around the title. Our crew had no idea. You should have. Naomi interrupted. Calm, surgical. Every vessel in this fleet carries my name on its registry. You work for me. The words hit like a wave slamming into steel. No raised tone, no anger. Just truth. Elliot, still filming from the shadows, caught the moment Leonard's jaw slackened Charlotte's grip, loosening as if the air itself had turned against her. Behind them, a few guests began to whisper. She owns Horizon, the Marine commander. No way, look at her badge. Naomi's gaze drifted to the horizon, then back to Charlotte. You pushed me toward the ocean, she said softly. Did you think the sea takes orders from you? Charlotte stammered. I didn't mean. You meant every word. The silence that followed was colder than the wind. Hale's radio buzzed faintly, a distant voice asking for confirmation. Deck control to Commander Reed, do you want to log this incident? Naomi looked around at the faces, watching her, the servers frozen mid-task, the guests shifting with guilt, the manager hiding behind protocol. No, she said at last. Let them remember it. That's punishment enough for now. Elliot lowered his phone. For the first time, someone clapped, just once hesitant, then again. The sound spread slowly, awkward but real. Charlotte's eyes darted to the cameras around the deck, realizing every second had been streamed through the ship's internal feed. Her defiance crumbled. Naomi stepped forward, stopping just inches from her. You said I didn't belong, she murmured. Now tell me, do you? Charlotte's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Only the ocean answered, rolling beneath them like judgment itself. And for the first time that night, the Horizon eclipse truly lived up to its name because something in Charlotte's world had just gone dark. Down below, words spread like current through metal. From the ballroom to the casino floor, screens began flashing the same silent feed, a woman on the upper deck standing unshaken while the captain's crew circled her like ghosts. No narration, no captions, just truth unfolding in real time. In the ship's observation, lounge passengers gathered around the bar. A child asked his mother, "Mom, why are they yelling at her?" The woman didn't answer. She just stared, knuckles white around her glass. On the deck, Naomi stayed still, her back straight against the wind. She didn't need to speak. The silence itself had become a verdict. Commander Hale said cautiously, "Should we end the feed?" Naomi turned to him. "You didn't start it. The ship did. The system records all security breaches automatically." Remember, his face fell, he had forgotten. Charlotte's composure cracked. "You can't humiliate us like this. My husband is a shareholder." Naomi's eyes didn't soften. "Then he should have taught you how ownership really works. You invest in systems you respect, not people you insult." Leonard tried to step in, but even he seemed to feel the gravity tilting. Around them, crew members, bartenders, attendants, even a mechanic in grease-stained coveralls had gathered near the deck doors. They weren't intervening. They were witnessing. From the crowd, a young deckhand named Riley, barely 21, spoke up. His voice trembled but carried. "Ma'am, I saw the boarding list earlier. Her name was there, under executive inspection. I remember because it was highlighted." Naomi turned to him gently. "Thank you, Riley." Charlotte spun on him. "You're lying." Riley's reply was quiet but firm. "No, ma'am. You are." The line sliced through the night cleaner than any blade. Naomi let the silence settle before she spoke again. "This is what power looks like when it isn't loud, when it doesn't have to beg to be believed." The deck lights flickered once more as the ship adjusted its course, the horizon yawning open ahead of them. Hale's radio hissed bridge control requesting orders. "Commander Reed," came the voice, "your directive." Naomi stared at Charlotte, then at the crowd. "Proceed as planned," she said. "But make a note. Guest conduct violation logged under maritime discrimination protocol." Charlotte gasped. "You can't. I already did." Somewhere applause began again, this time uncoached, full. A moment of collective breath, like the entire ship had exhaled its denial at once. Riley lowered his eyes. Hale saluted, and Naomi, framed against the restless sea, looked down at the reflection of the ship's name drifting across the waves. Horizon, the word itself meaning where heaven meets earth. She smiled faintly. Maybe that's why it burns when people try to play God. Rain began to form on the horizon, a soft silver mist pushing toward the ship. The air turned electric, half storm, half shame. Charlotte Wexler still stood near the railing, her confidence collapsing like wet paper. Her husband's face had gone pale. The night no longer belonged to them. Naomi Reed stepped forward, her boots steady on the deck. She wasn't raising her voice, but every syllable carried authority earned from years commanding men who faced live fire. "Security Chief Hale," she said, "log this as a Category 1 incident. Breach of conduct, verbal aggression, racial bias." Logged, Commander. Charlotte spun toward him. "You can't just... You're not actually doing this." Hale didn't look at her. "It's automatic now, ma'am," the crowd murmured. Someone whispered, "She's filing it live." Naomi turned slightly, scanning the faces around her. Some looked away, others stood frozen like people waking from a long, comfortable sleep. "For years," Naomi said, voice calm, "you've sailed across oceans believing the water belonged to you. That luxury insulated you from consequence." Her gaze cut through the wind. "But water remembers. So does the system you abuse." Lightning flickered miles away. The reflection danced across the metal rail between them. Charlotte tried one last stand, clutching her pearls like armor. "You can't destroy us over a misunderstanding," Naomi blinked once. "You pushed a decorated officer toward open water." Her tone was surgical, not angry. "That's not misunderstanding. That's instinct." The guests shifted uneasily. A man near the back muttered, "She's right," under his breath. It was enough to tip the balance. The crowd began to move, not away from Naomi, but toward her as if pulled by gravity. Elliot's camera caught at the symbolic moment the crowd aligned behind the woman they'd dismissed. "What are you all doing?" Charlotte hissed. Listening, someone replied. Naomi looked to Hale again. "Where's the captain?" "On his way, Commander." "Good," she said. "He'll want to see this himself." Charlotte's husband tried to salvage dignity. "We'll sue. This humiliation, you'll regret it." Naomi tilted her head. "I don't regret sunlight. It exposes what's already there." The ship rocked gently as the first drops of rain began to fall. Not enough to scatter the crowd, just enough to baptize the moment. From below, the elevator doors slid open with a chime. The captain stepped out, confusion flashing into horror when he saw who stood at the center of it all. Naomi Reed. No longer anonymous, no longer silent. The storm reached the deck, and this time it wasn't coming from the sea. Captain Daniel Morse strode across the slick deck rain, pinning his shoulders like medals he hadn't earned. He stopped short when he saw Naomi standing there, calm, centered command woven into every breath she took. Around her, passengers had parted in a rough circle the way waves split around rock. "Commander Reed," he began carefully, "I wasn't informed you were aboard." "Clearly," Naomi replied, "or you wouldn't have let your guests turn my ship into a courtroom." Charlotte gasped. "Your ship, she's lying, Daniel. She's pretending to." He silenced her with a glance. "The kind that says you've already said too much." Naomi stepped closer, the rain darkening her jumpsuit hair, curling against the mist. "Captain, your crew detained a passenger without cause. A shareholder's wife assaulted an officer and nearly caused a fatal incident. I want to know why I was the only one who remembered the safety code." Daniel's jaw tightened. "I'll investigate immediately." "You'll correct it immediately," Naomi countered. The tone wasn't raised. It didn't have to be. The air bent around it. From behind the captain, Hale shifted uncomfortably. "Sir, the protocol log is active. It's already recording all of this." Daniel blinked, recording what everything Naomi said. Since the first shout, the cameras, the audio, the data from every deck. Horizon's system doesn't lie. Charlotte's husband snapped. "You can't use that footage against us." Naomi turned to him, voice soft but precise. "Mr. Wexler, you're standing on a vessel registered under federal maritime law. Any assault on its commanding officer is a criminal act. Evidence is mandatory." Leonard took half a step back, the color leaving his face faster than the rain washing it away. Daniel exhaled. "Commander, what do you want me to do?" Naomi looked past him toward the passengers, still frozen by shame. "I want every person who laughed, who stayed silent, who thought their money made them immune to see what accountability looks like." She nodded to Elliot. "Show them." The young waiter hesitated, then tapped his screen. The footage from his phone cast onto the massive display above the pool bar, Charlotte shoving Naomi the words, "Stowaway, you people," the collective gasp. It played in brutal clarity under lightning. Charlotte screamed, "Turn it off." Naomi didn't even glance her way. Truth doesn't turn off. It replays. No one moved. The rain hit the screen, streaking over frozen faces of guilt and power. Naomi folded her arms. "Captain, you'll deliver a written apology to every crew member who watched this and stayed silent." And to the passengers, she looked around, "Welcome to the part of the cruise where you learn the difference between service and servitude." The storm rumbled overhead, applause flickered like thunder, and Daniel Morse lowered his head, not in defeat but respect. "Understood, Commander." For the first time that night, the ocean sounded like it was listening. Rain lashed against the glass railings, scattering light like broken glass. The crowd stayed rooted wet, silent, mesmerized. No one dared move except Naomi Reed, who stood unbothered, the storm fitting around her like armor. Captain Morse wiped rain from his brow. "Commander," he said quietly, "shall I escort them below for processing?" Naomi shook her head. "Not yet. The sea hasn't finished teaching." Charlotte tried again, her voice hoarse. "You're humiliating us in front of everyone." "No," Naomi replied. "I'm letting the truth breathe." She turned to the captain. "Patch me into the ship's intercom." Hale hesitated but obeyed. The chime echoed across every deck through lounges, cabins, and hallways. Then her voice, steady, resonant, filled the vessel. "This is Commander Naomi Reed. Some of you witnessed an altercation on the upper deck tonight. A passenger called me a stowaway and tried to push me overboard. She didn't know I owned this ship." A pause, heavy, deliberate. "But that isn't the point. The point is how easily we all believe power has a color and dignity has a dress code." Every speaker went silent except for the sound of wind. Crew members in uniform stood at attention. Housekeeping staff, maintenance techs, and junior officers looked up from their stations, listening like it mattered. "I built Horizon cruises to prove luxury doesn't have to mean exclusion. Yet tonight I found arrogance sailing first class. That ends here." Charlotte buried her face in her hands. Leonard froze beside her, drenched and speechless. Naomi continued, her voice dropping lower, more personal. "When I was 23, I slept under steel decks during missions surrounded by men who thought command wasn't meant for someone like me. Every day I stayed silent. I earned respect, not by shouting but by showing up again." The captain looked down, eyes glistening. "So I'm telling every officer, every guest on my ships, silence won't protect injustice anymore. If you see something wrong, speak. If you think rank excuse is cruelty, think again." The feed cut with a soft tone. For a long moment, the only sound was thunder. Then came applause from the lowest deck, first rising like a wave. From kitchens, corridors, passenger halls, the ship itself seemed to pulse with it. Naomi exhaled a slow release of years she'd carried quietly. She turned to Hale. Begin protocol follow-through, debrief all crew. Send copies of the footage to legal and PR. He saluted. Yes, Commander. Charlotte lifted her head, mascara bleeding into rainwater. You'll regret this, she whispered. Naomi looked at her, no fury, only clarity. Regret is what people feel when they realize too late who they really were. The storm eased as if the ocean itself agreed. By dawn, the storm had passed. The deck smelled of salt and consequence. The sea stretched wide and silver under a pale sun, its surface smooth again like nothing had happened, except everyone knew everything had. Naomi Reed stood near the ship's bow hands, resting on the cool steel railing. The wind pulled gently at her sleeves, carrying the last echoes of the night before. Crew members moved quietly behind her. No chatter, no gossip, just reverence. Even the engines seemed to hum, softer, aware of who walked above them. Captain Morse approached, hat in hand. Commander, he said, we've completed the statements. The footage is secured, and the passengers involved are confined to their suite under watch. Naomi nodded once. Good. Keep them comfortable but contained. He hesitated. There's talk among the staff. They didn't realize the company's new owner was you. That's why I boarded unannounced, Naomi replied. Power isn't proven by who knows your name. It's revealed by how they treat you when they don't. The captain bowed his head. Ma'am, the crew's asking if they can speak with you before docking. Naomi smiled faintly. Of course. They're the ones who'll steer this culture forward. Behind her, Charlotte and Leonard Wexler were being escorted from their suite, disheveled, pale, and wordless. Cameras followed, but Naomi didn't look back. She wasn't interested in revenge, only repair. Elliot, the young waiter, approached nervously, hat pressed to his chest. Commander, I just wanted to thank you. I almost didn't film last night. I was scared. Naomi met his eyes. Courage isn't about not being scared. It's pressing record anyway. He grinned through the exhaustion. Yes, ma'am. She turned toward the hull where workers were wiping away rain residue. Her reflection gleamed beside the embossed letters, Horizon, Eclipse. When I bought this fleet, she said softly, I told the board we'd rebuild it as more than a luxury line. I wanted it to be a lesson. Turns out the first one came early. The captain followed her gaze. What will you do about the Wexlers? Naomi's answer was simple. File the report, freeze their shareholder accounts, and send them a note. Thank you for your demonstration of why leadership matters. She exhaled the ocean, breathing with her. For the first time since boarding, she allowed herself to relax, shoulders loosening, eyes softening. You know, Captain, she said, people think power is loud, but it's just steady. Like this ship, like the tide. The captain nodded. And like you, Commander. Naomi looked ahead, the horizon glowing with light. No, she said quietly, like the name on the hull. It means hope, and now it means justice. The engines roared to life, cutting across the water. The ship moved forward, cleaner, prouder, reborn. By mid-morning, the Horizon Eclipse had anchored near the Bahamas for refueling. The air smelled of salt and diesel, but the tension from the night before still lingered like smoke that hadn't learned how to leave. On the upper deck, the remaining passengers gathered, some curious, some ashamed, all pretending to be casual. They'd watched the viral replay of Charlotte Wexler's meltdown a dozen times since sunrise. The video was everywhere, private group chats, news alerts, even the ship's internal bulletin. No one could scroll without seeing Naomi's calm face framed by lightning. Now that same face appeared again, walking through the deck, flanked by two quiet security officers. No entourage, no spectacle, just presence. Charlotte and Leonard stood waiting, flanked by the captain and Hale. Charlotte's mascara was gone, her jewelry removed, her defiance barely flickering. Leonard looked like he hadn't slept. Naomi stopped in front of them. Mr. and Mrs. Wexler, she said, her tone formal but not cruel. Last night you taught my company something invaluable. Charlotte's lips trembled. We didn't mean to. You did, Naomi said gently. And that's the point. Disrespect doesn't ask for permission, it just assumes it's safe. The guests nearby went quiet, some nodding faintly, others looking away. Naomi turned to the captain. Has the incident been logged with Maritime Authority? Yes, Commander. Time-stamped and verified. Then she continued, effective, immediately revoke their Horizon membership privileges. All shares will be reviewed for ethical compliance. And escort them off the vessel. Charlotte's voice cracked. You can't just erase us, Naomi met her eyes. No, you did that yourself. I'm just writing it down. As the security team stepped forward, a few passengers began to clap, hesitant at first, then stronger, rolling across the deck like thunder finding rhythm again. Charlotte covered her face. Leonard stared straight ahead, hollow. Naomi turned to the crowd. "I don't need you to cheer," she said. "I need you to remember." Her gaze lingered on each face, men in linen suits, women in sequined dresses, waiters still in last night's uniforms. Every system reflects the people who run it. Every silence builds the wall that keeps others out. If you want fairness, don't wait for storms to force it, build it yourselves. The applause quieted. The ocean filled the space she left open. Captain Morse saluted as the Wexlers were led down the gangway toward a tender boat. Cameras flashed again, but this time not in their favor. Naomi looked down at the water shimmering around the hull, her reflection merging with the word horizon. "Clean departure," she said softly. "No hatred. Just accountability." The captain nodded. "Aye, Commander." As the small boat drifted away, Charlotte's final glare dissolved in the Sunday. The sea accepted it without judgment, as it always had. And on deck, Naomi Reed turned away already, thinking not about punishment, but about rebuilding the standard she'd just set. By afternoon, the sky had cleared completely blue, so sharp it looked rinsed clean. The horizon eclipse cut through calm waters again, but inside, something deeper had shifted. You could feel it in the crew's movements, quieter, more deliberate, like people suddenly aware that decency was being graded in real time. Naomi Reed sat in the captain's office, the windows open to wind and light. The video feed of the previous night played muted on the screen before her. She wasn't watching it for satisfaction. She was studying silence, each frame showing who spoke, who froze, who looked away. Captain Morse entered quietly. "Commander reports are finalized. The company's legal team has confirmed full compliance. The footage will be submitted to corporate ethics and the Maritime Tribunal." Naomi nodded. "Good. Make sure the crew who stood up are noted by name." Hale appeared at the door, hesitant. "Commander, may I speak freely?" "Always. Ma'am, I've been in this job 22 years. I've seen officers yell, threaten, break men down to keep control. But you," he paused, finding the words, "you didn't need volume. You just needed truth. The crew's talking about it. They're proud again." Naomi smiled faintly. Then the ship's finally sailing right. She stood looking out at the horizon. "Hale, when I was 19, my first superior officer told me a black woman had no place commanding men at sea. He said the ocean doesn't take orders from women. I didn't argue. I learned tides instead." She turned to face him. "Turns out they follow anyone who knows direction." Hale lowered his eyes, voice soft. "Permission to say something, Commander. Go ahead." "That man was a fool." They both laughed, small, real. Down in the mess hall, Elliot served coffee to the cleaning staff, who were replaying Naomi's announcement on a tablet. "She didn't even shout," one whispered. "That's power." Elliot grinned. "That's leadership." Back in the office, Naomi signed a digital order, 3 quick strokes that carried the weight of centuries. The Wexler's shareholder suspension effective immediately. A note attached, "Reason ethical misconduct, class bias, and violation of human dignity policy." The captain read it over her shoulder. "Concise," he said. "Truth usually is," Naomi replied. She walked out onto the deck again, greeted by a chorus of quiet, respect crew members, straightening guests, nodding. No one dared mistake her now, not because of fear, but because of understanding. The ocean ahead was endless, glittering. Naomi let the sun hit her face. "You can't command respect," she murmured to herself. "You invite it by living like it's the only currency that matters." And somewhere deep below the engines thrummed like applause, steady, loyal, alive. By evening, the ship approached Miami. The coastline glowed ahead like a promise, but on deck no one spoke above a whisper. The night before still lived in the air, woven into the salt, the wood, the hum of the engines. Naomi Reed stood at the bow again, wind curling through her hair. The horizon shimmered gold, and for a moment it looked like the ocean itself was bowing to her steadiness. The captain joined her quietly. "Docking in 30 minutes, Commander," he said. "News networks have already requested statements." Naomi didn't look at him. "They'll get the footage. Not my words. The story doesn't need me explaining it." He nodded slowly, understanding. "You know this video's everywhere, right? Millions of views overnight." Naomi smiled faintly. "Good. Let people see what calm power looks like." She turned to him, her tone still soft, but edged with steel. "We spend years teaching people that power is noise, that whoever shouts first wins. But that's a lie. Real power is composure under pressure. It's knowing you don't have to raise your voice to raise the standard." Below deck, the crew lined up in formation. They'd asked to see her off before disembarkation. Elliot stood among them, still in uniform, phone lowered for once. Hale waited beside him, chest out with pride instead of fear. Naomi descended the steps to the lower deck, and as she walked through the line, every crew member saluted in silence. No speech, no applause, just mutual understanding. At the end of the line, Elliot spoke softly. "Commander, thank you for showing us what right looks like." Naomi paused. "Don't thank me. Keep doing it when no one's watching. That's how culture changes." When she reached the exit ramp, a reporter shouted from the pier, "Commander Reed." Any final comment on what happened aboard Horizon Eclipse? Naomi turned once the sea glinting behind her, her voice clear over the wind. "I don't need to replay what happened. The ocean already did." She let the words settle before adding, "Justice doesn't need to scream. It just needs to stand." She descended the ramp, her boots echoing against the metal, each step a punctuation mark to a story the world was still processing. Cameras flashed, waves broke against the hull, and for a moment everything, every injustice, every silence, every storm, seemed to pause in respect. As she reached the dock, Naomi looked back once more at the ship, her ship. The name gleamed in the dying light, Horizon Eclipse. "You tried to eclipse me," she whispered, "but all you did was show where the sun really is." The wind carried her words out to sea. And in that silence, steady, powerful, unforgettable, the ocean remembered.